I've been trying to piece together a few ideas, one of which is the scientific concept of entropy, which I'm seeing here is defined as a measure of disorder, randomness, or uncertainty within a system. Essentially, what this means is that as time progresses, the amount of chaos in the system increases until there is ultimately a state of equilibrium. Chaos actually means new information. It's sort of the same as uncertainty. Um, However, it's like uncertainty and randomness, right? So let's take, for example, the mathematical concept and coding concept of like a binary code, zeros and ones. The more random and uncertain the order of zeros and ones, the more information that you actually hold in the zeros and ones. And that's the basis of all programming, is on or off, 0 or 1, whichever is which. 0 might be off, 1 might be on. The more entropy in a system, the more information, right? So when I'm trying to draw that together with the story of Adam and Eve from the Bible, because in that story, the thing that kicked them out of the garden was actually that they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And knowledge is a result of information. So there was an increase of, disorder, randomness, or uncertainty in the lives of these two people, of Adam and Eve. Because what they did is they ate the fruit and they realized good and evil. And that introduced everything that comes along with good and evil. Things like approval or disapproval, shame, guilt, pride, positive emotions as well, like, self-assurance maybe. Kind of tired to think of specific examples of that. But the increase of chaos actually meant more information became available in the realm of what was good and the realm of what was potentially evil. But the knowledge of good and evil began specifically when they made a choice that was selfish, right? Eve's choice to eat of the apple when she was tempted by the snake was to increase her own gain, regardless of the cost to Adam, and also regardless to the cost to God, interestingly enough. So what she did is she did not respect the needs and take into account the true, actual needs of the other people that she was in a relationship with. Why did she do this? Well, she ate from the apple from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil because she was promised by the snake that it would make her like God, giving her an increase of power, and that increase of power is the same as an increase in future safety. So future safety really means you can look forward and project whether or not you're going to be in danger in the future by even having a concept of the future in general. The problem with the concept of the future is that, just like anything with an entropic property, it is disordered, it's random, and it is uncertain. So by conceptualizing the future at all, she increased the amount of uncertainty in the system, thus increasing entropy, increasing chaos, and increasing information. Thus, it's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And it's a knowledge of good and evil because she chose against the best interests of the people she was in a relationship with. So, really, the knowledge of good and evil in general began when humans stopped meeting each other's needs and relied instead on the attempt to project ourselves and our psyche into the future, and to claim things as property, things like food. So she took an apple from the tree, right? She took this apple, and let's consider first that we were hunters and gatherers when societies began. We tried to take our hunting and gathering nature and turned it into farming for vegetables or At the time, it usually would have been herding animals, like being a shepherd, or maybe herding cattle, right? So what we tried to do is to take the food, like the apple, and store it over time, so that in the future we would have resources, almost like as an insurance against the potential lack of resources in the future. Let's say that there's a drought or a freeze, for instance. And it's interesting, if you look back, a lot of the societies began after the Ice Age, about 10,000 years ago, right? And so humans went through a long period of extreme resource scarcity. And because of that scarcity, we thought, what can we do to prevent this shit? Because that fucking sucked and a lot of us died. And so that fear of death and that fear of the future, introduced by the knowledge of the future, increased uncertainty, entropy, good, evil, and it also introduced a new concept. The concept of storing something meant that if you stored it, it was your thing. And so it introduced the concept of property, and property introduced a new aspect of competition between people. Because you don't only own things. We also started having relationships where one person either superseded or in reality owned another person. And it just so happens in the majority of societies that it's men who have owned women or seen women as their property. Men usually being the stronger and more capable member of the species. I think that this was somewhat of a natural order, though it wouldn't have applied in tribal communities where men and women would have respected the fact that each of them has a vital role that is different from the other. And as a tribe, there wouldn't have been any competition for resources, even sexual resources, because we would have all had each other's best interests at heart, because we wouldn't have had that knowledge of good and evil that comes from the uncertainty, randomness, or disorder of a system, because we would have known the order of the system. There would have been certainty in the connections that we have with our tribes and with our families. And so it would have been completely unnecessary to enact any degree of evil against each other, because the human really isn't an individual organism. Humans are tribal organisms, not just a tribal species. So if you can think of like a fungus, like mushrooms, a mushroom can actually tell whether another species has entered the forest in which it resides from at least 30 miles away. And this is something that they've actually measured with like electrodes. So if you walk into the forest, a mushroom 30 miles away on a tree will show signs that there is like neurological, I guess you could say, more electrical than neurological, since I don't think they technically have neurons. But there is activity registering the fact that you have entered a forest. So that mushroom isn't, it is an individual mushroom, but it's also not, because it's communicating with all of the other mushrooms to the point where almost instantaneously that communication is gathered from like 30 miles away. Humans are much the same in a more natural state, like in a tribe. We have this capacity to actually be an organism as a collective. Like a tribe is an organism. The amount of connection, closeness, visibility that we would have with each other, and just the degree to which we would actually take care of each other. Like, you are a part of me when we are a tribe. Anything that is good for you will be good for me, because I know that you'll pay it forward, because you know that I'll pay it forward. Right? We literally are a tribal organism. And so the nakedness that Adam and Eve discovered was separation. It was uncertainty and disorder. When they realized that they were individuals, the shame came from saying, oh no, I am. And the thought, I am, also meant you are. And if I am and you are instead of we are, then you are a potential danger to me if we are not connected. That uncertainty and that knowledge of good and evil has enabled both of us the potential to hurt each other. It is an entropic principle of human social condition, right? So this sense of nakedness that Adam and Eve felt really came from the fact that they understood they could hurt each other. And that fear of each other and that fear of the potential future of being harmed by each other changed the world. It's what created society. It's what created the fact that we all live in individual homes, we drive our own cars, we have our own careers, we leave our family when we're a certain age. We even already live in nuclear families, which are not a natural thing, like just mom and dad and the kids, or even in the most cases now, just mom and the kids. That is not a natural human design. And so the feeling most people have of not knowing their purpose and feeling like they're a late bloomer or feeling like they're just a disappointment and they're failing in life and they really just like can't get ahead, and that all comes from the fact that we're separated from each other. And it's created a great deal of emotional and spiritual trauma. And there's not really a lot of hope in that. Sometimes all we can do is to try and find some relief. So many people will numb themselves. They'll numb themselves with video games or porn or, I don't know, YouTube, Instagram, not Netflix. Netflix is popular. Food. People would get fat because they feel so freaking sad. We will self-abuse in all sorts of ways because we are not individual humans. We were not meant to live individually or be successful as an individual. Everything in your life that has ever gone right is because of other people being involved in your life. You can only go to the store to purchase what you need from the store because the people who made the roads, the car, the store, the farm, the process for raising the animals, the process for the agriculture production of the fruits and vegetables that you eat. Without everybody who did all of that throughout all of history and created the innovations that led to where we are today, without the connection you actually have to all of those people, you would not be able to have as much quote-unquote independence as we think we have today. The problem is, those people are all dead. And so we don't have a sense of closeness with them. And that sense of closeness is what we feel as our sense of connection. When you drive a car, you don't feel connected to the guy in Tacoma, Washington who built your vehicle at the Toyota plant. You don't know him, you don't know his name, you don't give a shit about him. He's probably dead. If he's not dead, he's probably already quit that job and he's doing something else now. He doesn't know you, he doesn't care about you. So, I don't know. These are some... thanks for letting me rant. These are all the things I've been trying to tie together this week. Hopefully this is better than reading a script.